delicious, warm, gooey cinnamon rolls in just about an hour? It is possible, and the results are amazing. And today, I'm going to show you how. These 1 hour cinnamon rolls are easy, delicious, picky eater proof, and the entire family is going to love them. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Leanne from yourhomebased.com, and I love cinnamon rolls. What I don't love is how long it takes to make them. I love them for breakfast, but who wants to get up 3 to 4 hours early just to have warm, fresh cinnamon rolls coming out of the oven? Not me. But I am willing to get up an hour early so that I can have fresh, warm cinnamon rolls. And with today's recipe for 1 hour cinnamon rolls, I'm going to show you how. All right, we're going to start with our yeast mixture. And we want to make sure that all our ingredients are warm. And so we're going to use buttermilk. We're using 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. You don't want to use it straight out of the refrigerator, okay? Bring it to room temperature. And we're also using a cup of warm water. And you want the temperature to be about 105 to 110 degrees, all right? So we will start by putting in our warm water. We've got our at least room temperature buttermilk. We're going to add in a 1/4 cup of melted butter. And again, we want to make sure this is not too hot, okay? So if you're melting it in the microwave, don't put it straight in, because if it's too hot, what's going to happen is it will kill our yeast. So we need everything to be about that 105 degree temperature. We're going to add in a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. And then we're going to add in our yeast. And we are using 3 tablespoons of dry active yeast. This is what's going to make these rolls rise so nice and fast. So we're just going to kind of want to mix that together. And then we are going to let this sit in proof for about 10 to 15 minutes. And it's going to get nice and bubbly and foamy. And to help that process alone, you can either cover it with a towel, or sometimes I just like to take a plate, put it over the top, and let it sit. Our yeast mixture is ready. You can see how it's nice and bubbly and foamy. And we are going to add that in. We're going to use our stand mixer today. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can do this by hand. And we'll just pour that in. Then we are going to add in 2 eggs, 1/2 tablespoon of salt. And then we're going to start with 5 cups of all-purpose flour. We may end up adding in about 6. And then we are going to use our dough hook and mix it all together. So we're going to let this mix together and knead for about 5 minutes until our dough is nice and soft and smooth. All right, it's been about 5 minutes. Our dough is ready. Now, I didn't end up having to add any additional flour in, but just depending on your altitude and your weather, you may need to add some more in. You want your dough to be nice and soft, and it can be slightly tacky, but not so sticky that you can't handle it with your hands, okay? So we're gonna leave it in the bowl. We're gonna take a cloth, we're gonna cover it up, and we are gonna let it rise for 10 minutes. So while our dough is resting and rising for that 10 minutes, we're going to mix up the filling for the cinnamon rolls. You're gonna need 1/2 cup of granulated sugar and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. We'll need 2 tablespoons of cinnamon and 2 tablespoons of melted butter. We'll just take our fork and mix that up. All right, so our filling is like the consistency of damp sand. We're going to put that aside, and our dough is ready. We're going to just lightly flour our surface and take our dough on out. If it's a little sticky, just go ahead and give it a few kneads with a little bit of flour, just so that it's not like totally sticking to your hands when you're working with it, but it should be nice and soft. All right, then we're going to take this, so we've got enough flour. I'm going to take my rolling pin, lightly flour it, and we're going to roll our dough out into a rectangle. Okay, we want to roll it out to about a 12 by 16 rectangle. I like to kind of rotate my dough around, roll it one way, and then rotate it 90 degrees. Just kind of stretch it out. It'll start to relax a little bit more as you roll it. It doesn't have to be perfectly rectangular. All right, now we are ready to take our filling And we are just going to sprinkle it, move that out of the way, sprinkle it over the top of our dough. I don't usually take it all the way up to the edge, just to give it a little room to smush over as I roll up the dough. And we're going to take our dough and we're going to, from the long end, the 16-inch end, we are going to just start rolling our dough up. If you lose a little filling, just tuck it back in there. Now you want to put your seam down underneath, and we are ready to cut our cinnamon rolls. Now here is a little trick for you. Trick is we're going to use some thread. Now you can use thread, you can use dental floss. If you're going to use dental floss, just don't use flavored dental floss because you don't want that mint flavor getting on your cinnamon roll. So we're going to take our thread and we're just going to slide it underneath our cinnamon rolls right to about the middle. Bring up our thread, cross it over, and just pull, and it cuts right through the cinnamon roll. You're going to get a nice clean cut doing it this way. You see. All right, and so then this recipe makes 12 large cinnamon rolls. If you wanted to make more, you can cut your cinnamon rolls smaller, but I'm then just going to take each half and cut it in half, and each quarter then into 3 pieces. All right, so after we've got them all sliced, we are going to take just a jelly roll size pan, which is about 15 by 13. You could also do this in a 9 by 13. And I have sprayed it with some nonstick baking spray, and I'm just gonna lay my cinnamon rolls right on top. And then we are going to cover them with a towel and let them rest for 15 minutes. And then they're going to be ready to go into the oven. Then I'm going to cover them with a cotton towel and let them rise for 15 minutes. They have risen for about 15 minutes. They will continue to rise a little bit in the oven also, but we're going to put them in a 400-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 12 to 15 minutes until they turn golden brown. So next we are going to mix up the frosting that goes on top of our cinnamon rolls. This is my favorite part. And we are going to use a 1/4 cup of softened butter, a teaspoon of vanilla, and 3 cups of powdered sugar. I'm going to start by putting my butter and vanilla in, and I'm just going to mix that together just a little bit to get it nice and softened so that the powdered sugar incorporates better. All right, now we're going to add in our powdered sugar. And we're going to need to add in a little bit of milk. And I'm going to use whipping cream. You can use half and half, whole milk, whatever you have. And I like to just start with just about, I don't know, a teaspoon at the first, and then we'll see how we do. Okay, I can tell I'm going to need more. Need another teaspoon. You want to do it a little at a time because you can go from just the right consistency to runny really quick. I like it to be about the consistency, it's a buttercream, so like that you would spread on cupcakes or a cake. We're going to be spreading it on warm cinnamon rolls, so it is going to melt a little bit when we put it on. So it can be a fairly stiff buttercream because of that. And they smell amazing, and they're ready to frost. Now, 2 options. If you like your frosting to be more like a glaze on the cinnamon rolls, go ahead and frost them while they are still really warm. If you like your frosting to sit more on type like a buttercream frosting, then let them cool down a bit before you frost them. So we're going to just take our frosting, and I've let mine cool a little bit because I prefer to have my frosting not totally melt into the cinnamon roll. Now, a lot of times people ask me, especially on these cinnamon rolls, is if they can freeze. And these totally are freezable. I usually like to freeze them before I frost them, but you can actually freeze them frosted also. And if I'm going to freeze them, what I do is I will flash freeze them first. I separate them a little bit, put them in my freezer, and just freeze them till they are frozen solid. Then I pull them out and I wrap each individual cinnamon roll in some plastic wrap and then some foil and freeze them individually. I'll then put each of the individual rolls, as many as will fit maybe into a big gallon zippered bag. And that way then I can pull them out one at a time whenever I am craving a cinnamon roll. Warm them up and thaw them. I always unwrap them from the plastic wrap and the foil and let them thaw unwrapped, okay? Otherwise they're gonna get kind of sweat and get mushy. And let them thaw at room temperature. And then to reheat them, you can do it a couple different ways. You could do it in the microwave just for like maybe 15 seconds. You don't want to overdo it because if you warm them too much in the microwave, they get tough. Or you can wrap them in foil and warm them up in like a 300-degree oven for 5 minutes or so. And then I like to frost them just so the frosting is nice and fresh and doesn't totally melt into the cinnamon roll while you're warming them up. But you can totally freeze them frosted too, especially if you have leftovers, and they are just as delicious then. So in the freezer, they will last about 2 months or so. And last time I made them, I actually timed myself, and they actually took me 72 minutes. Okay, so a little bit over 60 minutes or an hour, but we're gonna call them 60-minute cinnamon rolls. So it is ready to enjoy, and you don't have to get up at the crack of dawn in order to enjoy a cinnamon roll. Now be sure you check out some of my other yummy bread recipes here on YouTube by clicking over here. Two of my favorites are the 30-minute roll recipe and the easy bakery-style French bread. They're both delicious. And we'll see you next week in the kitchen.